The story begins with 3 motionless bodies appearing and rising to the surface near the Connecticut River in western Massachusetts in the moonlight. Next, we see Detective Thomas, who works in homicide, waiting at Boston Airport's South Station to welcome his daughter Emma Craven home. Thomas is a single father and has been solving homicide cases in Boston for a long time. Emma, his only daughter, is 24 years old. After buying snacks, Thomas finds Emma ready at the airport. Just as they are about to leave, Emma vomits, arousing Thomas's concern. Emma reassures him that she is fine and they head home. Despite Thomas's joy at seeing his daughter, Emma's health suddenly deteriorates. At home, Emma and Thomas decide to have a pleasant dinner. While Thomas prepares the meal, Emma waits at the dining table. Her nose is bleeding again and she begins to vomit, causing worry and tears. Thomas tries to comfort her, but Emma urgently asks to see a doctor, suspecting that she has ingested poison. As they leave the house to rush to the hospital, a masked gunman suddenly appears, shouting "Craven." When Thomas and Emma turn around, the man shoots Emma with a rifle, mortally wounding her before fleeing. Thomas tries to save his daughter, but she dies in his arms. Thomas's world is shattered when he loses Emma. It is unclear whether the masked man was targeting Thomas or Emma. The next day, police go to Thomas's house suspecting that someone wanted to harm him but mistakenly killed his daughter. While wiping his face with a towel, Thomas notices his daughter's blood stains. Touched by grief, he keeps the towel as a precious reminder of Emma. Upset by Emma's absence, Thomas explores her room, wishing to find her. In his room, he finds Emma's phone suddenly begins to ring. Answering it, he hears only silence on the line, finding it strange but not returning the call. The next morning, he returns to the police station, determined to help uncover the truth behind the attack on him. He asks the forensic team to extract the contact numbers from Emma's phone, despite being advised by his superior to take leave. Thomas is determined to conduct the investigation himself and seeks answers. He visits the doctor who conducted Emma's autopsy and inquires about the cause of death, discovering that it was a gunshot wound. At the coroner's office, Thomas asks for scissors to take a lock of Emma's hair as a memento. Later, he scatters Emma's ashes on the beach before returning home to find his company ID card in his bag, indicating his employment with the Northmore Company. In his room, Thomas discovers a .45 caliber pistol hidden in a nightstand drawer. The discovery raises suspicions that someone may have been targeting Emma all along. Tracing the gun's serial number, he identifies it as registered to a person named David Burnham. Convinced that David may have called Emma the night before, Thomas decides to visit him. When he arrives at David's house and knocks on the door, David becomes wary and grabs a knife. Thomas enters cautiously, but David abruptly slams the door on his hand, dropping the gun. After a brief struggle, Thomas manages to subdue David. He interrogates David, discovering that he is Emma's romantic partner. Thomas questions David about why he gave Emma the gun, suspecting that she might be in danger from someone lurking in the shadows. David, however, maintains a secrecy, stating that he too is under surveillance. David finds some of Emma's personal items in his possession, including the house keys, which he hands over before urging Thomas to leave. Realizing David's reticence, Thomas decides to go to Emma's house, pondering the woman's reasons for carrying a gun. Inside Emma's house, Thomas comes across a Geiger counter, a device used to detect radiation. Upon further investigation, Thomas discovers that a lock of Emma's hair is radioactive. Meanwhile, a man named Darius Jedberg receives information from his source that implicates Northmore in the illicit production of nuclear weapons overseen by an individual named Jack. It seems that Emma has stumbled upon this damning revelation and plans to reveal the truth. Contrary to the police theory that Emma's death was related to a vendetta against her father, the truth seems more complex. It emerges that Emma discovered Northmore's clandestine production of nuclear weapons, using foreign materials at the research and development facility contracted by the U.S. government and led by Jack. The weapons had to be associated with other countries if the U.S. was going to use them as dirty bombs, and perhaps Northmore orchestrated Emma's death to make it look like the killer was targeting Thompson. After discovering this, Thomas decides to call the numbers found in Emma's phone in hopes of finding more clues. He discovers Melissa Conway's number and contacts her. Thomas asks Melissa, who was Emma's friend and colleague, to meet with him. Initially hesitant, Melissa agrees after learning of Emma's tragic disappearance. She promises to contact Thomas to arrange their meeting the next day. Thomas then meets with Jack and confronts him. Jack insists that Northmore is not involved in illegal activities, as he was only conducting government-approved research. The scene shifts to Thomas burning Emma Craven's clothes in his garden when he suddenly senses a presence behind him. Thomas quickly grabs his weapon and turns to see Darius Jedburgh, a British consultant, sitting in his garden. Darius reveals to him that his job is to prevent the disclosure of Emma's information and to tie up all loose ends, including her father. Shockingly, Darius reveals to Thomas that his daughter was involved in terrorism. Darius shows Thomas photos of 3 deceased people, whose bodies were shown at the beginning of the film. He claims that all 3 attempted to infiltrate Northmoor to gather information about their illicit operations. Darius claims that the 3 individuals died while trying to escape, suggesting that there is something shady going on in Northmoor. Jedburgh informed Thomas that Emma's computer was missing from her home. Despite this revelation, Thomas refused to believe that his daughter was involved in illegal activities with Northmoor. Darius then revealed that Emma had accompanied these 3 individuals to steal information about Northmoor, but had managed to escape before they could catch her. Suddenly, Thomas realized what Emma had been trying to tell him before her untimely death. Darius, who had taken a liking to Thomas, left him to conduct his own investigation. The next day, Thomas revisited Emma's boyfriend David and inquired about Emma's possible involvement with those people. David revealed to Thomas that Emma had been an activist who had reported Northmoor's illegal activities to the government and had even written to Senator Jim Pine. He explained that Emma was determined to expose Northmoor's wrongdoings. David also clarified that Emma had not been exposed to radiation during her research at Northmoor. Subsequently, Thomas returned the gun to David. The next day, David was discovered dead, shot in the head. Meanwhile, a strong friendship blossoms between Thomas and Darius. Darius conveys to Thomas his belief that Emma's friends were somehow exposed to radiation and is determined to find out the truth behind the situation. Later, Thomas visits Mr. Sanderman, a lawyer to whom Emma Craven had made confidences about Northmoor before her death. However, as Sanderman is the legal representative of the company, he denies any involvement in the concealment of the truth. When Thomas questions him, Sanderman firmly rejects the accusations. Unable to get useful information from Sanderman, Thomas meets Melissa, one of Emma's friends in the activist group. Melissa reveals that Jack, the owner of Northmoor, had become suspicious of Emma. The woman had confided her concerns to Melissa, suspecting that she had been poisoned by Jack. Melissa, hesitant to reveal further details because of the danger to her life, delivers an envelope to Thomas before leaving. Tragically, Melissa is hit by a car in what appears to be a deliberate act orchestrated by Jack. Thomas recognizes the car from its presence near Northmoor, linking it to Jack's plan. The car threatens to run over Thomas as well, but he uses his gun to shoot the driver, causing the car to plunge into a river. Thomas takes Melissa to the hospital, where she loses a leg as a result of the accident. Inside the envelope delivered by Melissa, Thomas discovers a CD that, when played, reveals a video of his daughter discussing the illegal production of nuclear weapons. This revelation clarifies the motive for his daughter's murder. After following several leads and conducting a thorough investigation, Thomas learns from Melissa, who was nearly killed by a Northmoor agent, that Jack ordered the murder of Emma Craven and the other activists working to expose Northmoor. Examining Emma's refrigerator with a Geiger counter, Thomas determines that her milk is radioactive, indicating that she was poisoned with this milk. Later, Thomas confronts Senator Jim Pine, whom Emma had previously informed of Thomas's knowledge of the case. Thomas demands a proper investigation and leaves. Later, while at home, Thomas is visited by his partner, Bill. Suddenly, Northmoor agents burst into the house, knock Bill unconscious, and kidnap Thomas. He awakens chained to a stretcher in a prison-like room, but manages to escape. Back home, Thomas begins to feel violently ill. He realizes that he has been poisoned with radiation by Northmoor agents. Desperate for revenge and running out of time, he takes his gun and pursues Jack Benny. At Jack's house, Thomas forces a Northmoor agent to reveal the real killer of his daughter. After shooting the agent and wounding Jack in a gunfight, Thomas forces poisoned milk down Jack's throat. When Jack finds the antidote, Thomas kills him, admitting that Jack deserves his fate. Darius, suffering from another serious illness, meets the senator and the 2 political advisors who had hired him to manage Thomas. Their goal is to give the public a positive image of the Northmoor incident by painting Emma as a terrorist who poisoned her own father. Darius suggests a plan to stage an assassination attempt on the senator to distract the media from Jack's death. The group likes the idea and supports it, but their joy is short-lived because Darius reveals that he is actually on the opposite side. In a surprising twist, Darius kills both the advisors and the senator. A nervous young police officer enters and Darius, holding him at gunpoint, asks him if he has children. When the officer answers yes, Darius lowers his gun, allowing the officer to fatally shoot him. Darius had no children and did not want to alienate a father from his children, so he let the officer kill him. While Thomas is on his deathbed in the hospital, Emma enters his room, approaches him, and whispers something to him. Thomas dies from his injuries and radiation exposure, while a young reporter from the local TV station, who had recently interviewed him, receives a letter with DVDs recorded by Emma Craven that unravel the conspiracy, leading to Northmore's downfall. In her final moments, Emma's spirit comforts Thomas. The story ends with Thomas and Emma leaving the hospital together, hand in hand, walking down the corridor and into a bright white light.